حي على الفلاح.
He was a scholar and expert in Qur'an, Hadith. He studied in Yemen, Morocco, Khurasan. Allahu Akbar, he used to travel distances more than 2 months, 4 months with his friends to learn knowledge. And on top of that, he had extreme financial difficulties to the point where he never asked for any money from anybody. And people offered him, scholars, the government, the khalifas, friends. Imam Ahmad never accepted anything from anybody until he died. His uncle, he used to work for the government, and he used to write letters to the Khalifa, Harun al-Rashid. And a long time passed, and Harun al-Rashid sent a letter to his uncle saying, "Where are all the letters? You're meant to report to me." He's writing reports about people, what they're doing, what they're not doing. So like spying. The uncle said, "I sent them all through Ahmad." He said, "I never received anything." So they called Ahmad along. Imagine 12, 13-year-old boy now coming before the Khalifa, and he's asking him, "Where are all the letters?" Uncle says, "I gave you them all from years, 5 years ago." He says, "I threw them all in the Tigris River." He said, "Why?" He said, "In it are backbiting and spying on other people, and this is haram. I refuse to do it." The uncle got a little bit upset. The Khalifa looked at him and said, "Don't." He said, "If this young boy has that much piety, how can we compare ourselves to him? He is an example to us." Khalifa Harun al-Rashid said this. Everybody envied this teenager. The perception of Imam Ahmad is that of rigidity, unfortunately. When people say Ahmad ibn Hanbal or Hanbali, it is so sad that people attach him and his school of thought to rigidity, strictness, ultra-religious. And Imam Ahmad was also one of those, like the other Imams, who was accused.
Allah bears witness of greatness to Himself, that there is no God worthy of worship but Him. And He bears witness to the greatness of His creation of the angels. And He bears witness to the importance and greatness of those endued with knowledge.
He was born in the year 164 Hijri, born in Baghdad, died in Baghdad. And he was born in the year when Imam Malik died. But Imam Ahmad started his knowledge at the age of 15 years. Imam Ahmad was one of those, just like Imam Shafi and Imam Malik, his inspiration and his channel into knowledge was his mother. Imam Ahmad, raised by his mother. And Imam Ahmad came from a tribe called Banu Shayban. And the mother of Imam Ahmad was extremely wise, and she spent so much on her son in knowledge and wisdom. She stayed single all her life after the death of her husband, raising and teaching her son Imam Ahmad. And Imam Ahmad loved his mother so immensely. He had a special spot in his heart. In fact, he was 21 years old. And one day he was walking with one of his friends, and he said to him, "Let's cross the Tigris River," for some reason. And he said to him, "No, my mother told me never to cross the Tigris River." Today, a 21-year-old who says, "My mum doesn't let me," imagine what happens to them. She gave up her life. You won't believe this, but Imam Ahmad, because he loved his mother so much, and he knew the sacrifice she had done for him, he did not marry so long as his mother was alive. Because he also wanted to dedicate his time and his years for his mother. For Allah first, then his mother, until she died, rahmatullah alayha, and he was at the age of 40. He married at the age of 40, subhanallah. His first wife was Aisha, Salih. She lived with him for 30 years. In these 30 years, her and I never disagreed on a single word. After she died, Imam Ahmad married another wife. Her name was Rayhan. and from her was his second son, Abdullah. Salih and Abdullah became scholars and muhaddithin. Imam Ahmad, after Rayhana, she died as well, and he lived on. He married again, and he had 2 children after the age of 74 years. He died at 77. And his kids were still babies when he died, rahmatullahi alayh. As for Imam Ahmad, what he looked like, he was an Arab, tall, dark. He dyed his hair with henna. He was very clean, well groomed. He memorized the whole Qur'an at a young age. And he was among the few youngsters who read and wrote. Imam Ahmad was the top in his rank in hadith. The middle or the balanced amount that he is said to have memorized is 700,000. He produced these hadiths in a famous book called Kitab al-Musnad. Imam Ahmad, what a determined man. Someone who makes a decision and sticks to it to the end. His first teacher was, guess who? Was Abu Yusuf al-Qadhi, who was the first student of Imam Abu Hanifa. His second teacher, Haytham ibn Jumayl. The third teacher he had was Yazid ibn Huraway, and he was a very powerful and influential teacher, Yazid. As for the fourth teacher was Abdul Rahman ibn Mahdi, the scholar who encouraged al-Shafi'i. His fifth teacher, Waqi' ibn al-Jarrah. His sixth teacher was Abdul Razzaq ibn Humam from Mecca. Seventh teacher was Imam al-Shafi'i. And it was Imam al-Shafi'i who was his greatest and most influential and loved teacher of all of them. Imam Ahmad said, I have never made more dua more than for Imam al-Shafi'i. He said to his son, my son al-Shafi'i was like the sun to the world. And he was the medicine and health for people. So look, can you find that you can be without the sun and without health? No. He also said about Imam al-Shafi'i, I make dua for al-Shafi'i in my salat. Every prayer for 40 years he used to say, oh my Lord, forgive me and my parents and Muhammad, son of Idris al-Shafi'i. In Mecca, Imam Ahmad went there one day. And he was still in his 20s or so, so he's a young man. Imam al-Shafi'i was still in his early times, wasn't very popular yet. And he had a friend by the name of Yahya ibn Ma'in. And he was his friend in lessons, in study. When they used to go to Mecca, there was a teacher named Sufyan ibn Uyayna. So one day, his friend Yahya ibn Ma'in, he noticed that Imam Ahmad was not in the circle with them, with Imam Sufyan ibn Uyayna. Sufyan ibn Uyayna, an extraordinary scholar of his time and even till today. He looked and he saw Imam Ahmad, the young man, sitting in in the circle of Imam al-Shafi'i. Now at that time, Yahya did not know who Imam al-Shafi'i wasn't popular yet. He just looked like a Bedouin, just like a Bedouin, Imam al-Shafi'i. He thought, what's Imam Ahmad sitting with a Bedouin? He went there and he sat with Ahmad and just a few people around this circle. He said, Ya Imam, what are you doing, Ahmad? He said, come here, come here. He said to Yahya, he said, listen to this man. He said, but Imam Sufyan, because just listen for a second. He sat down and listened. And he said, it's impressive. He said, but why did you leave Imam Sufyan ibn Uyayna to come to a Bedouin? He said, with Imam Sufyan, if you listen to him and you missed out something, you can ask him tomorrow. As for this man, the words you hear for him, if you don't hear him first time, you will never hear them from anyone again. This man is something different. Yahya said, but okay. He went and sat back with Sufyan. Afterwards, only in a matter of about 2 or 3 years, Imam al-Shafi'i's circle was the largest in all of Mecca, and everybody left all the circles and sat with Imam al-Shafi'i. What does that tell you about Imam Ahmad? He had a foresight, and so he became his great teacher. The trial in his time, he went through a trial more than any other Imam went through of this issue called the creation of the Qur'an. There was a group called al-Mu'tazila, and they started off even before, from the time of Abu Hanifa, but they never came up until the time of Imam Ahmad, where they really started to show. Now, what happened? This group of people came along and they said, the Qur'an is not the word of Allah, it is the creation of Allah. because speech is created and speech came after Allah. Therefore the Qur'an is speech and it is created like you and me. It is not the words of Allah. So therefore they're implying the words of Allah are not perfect. And they said, they used their words and their evidences of philosophy and ilm al-kalam. They came out in the time of Harun al-Rashid. Then he died. Al-Khalifa al-Ma'mun came up. And then Al-Mu'tasim, his brother, followed by his son Al-Wathiq. So Al-Ma'mun was the first. He didn't believe in that. But there was a man who came out. He was a faqih, he understood scholar in religion, but he was affected by the philosophy and dialectics of the Greeks and so on and so forth. He made up this thing and he came to the Khalifa al-Ma'mun and he convinced him about the khalq of the Qur'an. Al-Khalifa al-Ma'mun, unfortunately, even though he was a very learned man, he influenced him and he believed what he believed. At first, Al-Khalifa al-Ma'mun did not impose it on people. He said, I believe in this, but he didn't impose it. But then this man, no, you have to tell the people this is part of Aqeedah and have to agree on it. And if they don't agree, it is disbelief. So then after 3 years, Al-Ma'mun stood up on this rampage. He said everybody must accept it. And he came to all his workers and his government officials and he said, start with my judges and start with the scholars that work for me. They have to believe in it. About 30,000 Imams. It's halal because of their lives, yielded. They all said the Qur'an is created. Only a number of them. Some of them, they did a trick. They said, the Qur'an, the Zabur, the Psalms and the Torah, these 4 are created, meaning my 4 fingers. The government understood, the Khalifa liked it, and he said, well, okay. Finally came Imam Ahmad and 3 friends of his who were contemporaries. They came to him and they asked him the question, what do you say? They said, the Qur'an is the word of Allah, not created. The Khalifa ordered that they be put in chains and brought as prisoners. When they came to that, 2 of his friends, the ulama, they yielded. They said, no, it's created. They couldn't withstand it. Our family, our children, and they were left behind. Then it was Imam Ahmad and his favorite friend, Yahya ibn Ma'in. Yahya ibn Ma'in was resilient. They put the chains in him and on their way. But even Yahya yielded. On his way, Imam Ahmad, this is now where the karamat come in. On his way, he made a dua. He said, oh Allah, do not let me meet Ma'mun. The second day, they came back and they said, you have to be returned. Why? He said, your sentence has been suspended. The Khalifa died. But before that, Al-Mu'tasim, his brother, took over. Al-Mu'tasim was not a scholar. He was a military commander. So he was tough, was ruthless, and his brother Al-Ma'mun, he loved him a lot. Al-Ma'mun, before he died, requested him, he said, make sure that there is no alim or judge except that you make sure that he believes and says that the Qur'an is created. Al-Mu'tasim did not care about anything else. All he wanted is to carry out his brother's order. My brother said it, I'm going to do it, I don't care who it is. And so he carried it out again. And so Imam Ahmad was brought into chains one more time on his way. Subhanallah, it was not an alim. It was not a scholar or a shaykh or a judge who came to him to give him strength. You know who came to him? A simple Bedouin who hardly knows anything, even reading or writing. He came up to him and he said, Ya Imam, I hear that you have been summoned to say that the Qur'an is created. Ya Imam, stand strong. Never say these words. Imam Ahmad said, Allah, this is from Allah, a support. Allah is sending a Bedouin from the desert. Which scholar is going to do? All the scholars said, we yield. A Bedouin from the desert. And he was brought before the Khalifa in Baghdad. It was hot. It was deadly. It was Ramadan. Al-Mu'tasim was fasting. Imam Ahmad was fasting. He was put into the prison. And then he was brought out. On the first day, Al-Mu'tasim tried to yield. He said, Ya Imam, please, you are a respected person. I'll let you go. Say what they are saying. Say what your friend said, Yahya. He said, but even then, I stick to what I have to say. He was determined. Ya Imam, please, Ya Imam, please. And the Imam Ahmad said to Khalifa, he said, Ya Khalifa, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen. So he acknowledged his imara. Said to him, give me one evidence from the Qur'an that the Qur'an is created. I cannot find any evidence. Give me evidence and I'll accept. Al-Mu'tasim couldn't find anything. Then he said, take him to the prison. He went. Second day he came out. And this time, Ahmad ibn Abi Du'ad and his scholars around there. Ahmad ibn Abi Du'ad went into a debate with him. He said, I have evidence from the Qur'an that the Qur'an is created. He said, which one? He said, Allah says, we have sent this Qur'an down in the Arabic language. Imam Ahmad looked at him and said, Allah did not say, we have created the Qur'an in the Arabic language. He said, we have sent down the Qur'an in Arabic language. This does not mean it is created. Then they went into a debate. And the debate went on and there is no evidence. And Imam Ahmad is reciting his evidence as if he could read them before his eyes, even though he was in chains. As for Al-Mu'tasim, he's watching. He didn't care whether he's right or wrong. All he cared about was carry out the bequest of his brother. That's it. They put him back in the prison. Third day, fourth day, fifth day. Imam Mu'tasim is trying to yield. Please, I'll let you go with your family. Just say it and I'll let you go. Imam Ahmad determined, I will not say it. This is deen. It's not my religion. It's the religion of Allah. The whip was brought out. They whipped him and he would resort to dua and supplications and he would go unconscious. Doctor would say, I would have to take remnants of the ropes out of his body with knives, and sometimes I would have to cut out meat on the knives off his back. And he stood firm. He was fasting in Ramadan while being whipped and his back was seeping pus and blood, and he would not break his fast, and the people would give him water. Those who were whipping him say, drink. And he would say, Wallahi, I will not drink, I'm fasting. I wish to meet my Lord. If I die like this, I wish to meet him fasting. Man of determination, ya Ammi. This is something unbelievable. But he didn't die. Then they saw him after a few days of whipping, and this is in history. They saw him say some words. They couldn't understand it. But one of the writers says, later on, I understood what he was saying. He was saying, Oh Allah, do not let my awrah show. His pants was slipping off. All this mattered not to him except that his awrah would show. The person who's writing says, Wallahi, I saw his pants by themselves somehow make their way up, and they were tight on his body and never fell. When he entered the prison with his pain and torture, he would stay up in the night praying. Another support from Allah came to him. A man who was imprisoned for drinking alcohol, he came up to him and he said to him, Ya Imam, I have been whipped 40 lashes each time for drinking alcohol. I have now been in prison for 4 years because I drink alcohol. And I cannot resist my alcohol. And I have resisted the whipping for 4 years because of something haram, alcohol. He says, you are resisting the whipping for the sake of Allah. Do not give in. If I resisted for alcohol, you can resist it for something fillah. And Imam Ahmad said, Allahu Akbar, this is more support from Allah. No scholar, no pious person, no one. A drunk, an alcoholic, and a Bedouin from the middle of the desert who knows nothing of reading and writing except sheep and camel and goats and their feces. This is where the support came from. So he made friends with all the prison inmates. This man is subject, I'm talking about 13 or 14 years of his life imprisoned and out. One man came to him and they felt sorry for him. And he said to him, Ya Imam, just get yourself out of this. We can't bear seeing you like this. He looked at him and he said, are you a student of knowledge? He said, yes. He said, look outside the window of this small door of this prison. He looked outside and he said, what do you see? He said, I see people I cannot count in numbers. Thousands and thousands of people waiting outside. They are carrying feathers of pens and writing material that they write on. He said to them, they are students of knowledge. They are waiting for what I have to say. And for the generations to come in the future, this is what the knowledge will be. I am the last standing on this. I must stand firm. The Khalifa, Al-Mu'tasim, died. And Al-Wathiq, his son, took over. Same thing, was affected by. But this time Al-Wathiq, he looked at Imam and he saw that there was social issue. He didn't want an uprising against him, because the people, the amounts of people who were sympathizing with Imam Ahmad were too many. So he had to stop the torture and take off his chains. For several years Imam Ahmad taught the students from behind bars, until finally one day he stood him up, and this Ahmad ibn Abi Du'ad was standing there. Al-Wathiq was sitting. Ahmad ibn Abi Du'ad, he came up to him and said, just say it, whisper it to my ear and I'll let you go. Whisper it, I have a connection with the Khalifa. No one understood this Imam. This Imam didn't care about you or you or you. He'd die in this cause. Then he said to him, Ya Ahmad, give me one evidence and I will follow you. He said, the most merciful, he taught the Qur'an. Imam Ahmad said, Allah did not say Ar-Rahman created the Qur'an. He said, Allama al-Qur'an. He taught the Qur'an. This is not evidence. Then he said to him these words. He said, Ar-Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is silent about it. Abu Bakr is silent about it. Omar is silent about it. And do you think you're better than the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, Abu Bakr and Omar, to talk it? They stayed silent, why can't you stay silent? And that's when it was the last straw. Al-Wathiq started to think with his head, the Khalifa. It says in the narration that Al-Wathiq started laughing so badly that he fell back and lifted his leg up, saying, Ya Ahmad ibn Abi Du'ad, the Prophet and Abu Bakr and Umar, they stayed silent and you had to open your big mouth. Until finally Al-Wathiq looked at it and he said, this is rubbish. Al-Wathiq died, but he didn't release him and announce it. Another Khalifa came up and he said, what is this? He released Imam Ahmad and he came to the Mu'tazila and he stopped them where they were, and the whole of the city, Al-Khalifa announced that the Mu'tazila are rejected and refused, and this Imam has shown their wrong. And then the people of the Medina, of the whole city, came from Baghdad, and the Imams and all those who whipped him and tortured him, seeking his forgiveness. Imam Ahmad announced, he said, I forgive every person, every Khalifa, every person who instigated this, every person who whipped me, and I forgive them with all my heart, except the Mu'tazila. Even when he was dying on his deathbed, he was unconscious, and Abdullah, his son, heard his father saying, not yet, not yet. And his son said, what do you mean, no, you don't want to meet Allah yet? Then when he awoke, he said to him, the shaitan came to me saying to me, you have gone away from my trickery, I couldn't do anything to you. And I said to him, not yet, the war between you is not over yet. You're trying to trick me so I can put my guards down. Imam Ahmad, even to the last minute, determined, said, the war between me and you is not over yet. Don't flatter me. What happened after him was a disaster. His students became overzealous, and they began to become too rigid, too strict, beyond measure. Saying, some of them even went to the extent of saying, after the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, no one is more important or valuable or pious than Imam Ahmad. They went to the extent of saying, there is no greater faqih than Imam Ahmad on the face of the earth. So much so that taking the law into their own hands, going beyond the Khalifa, they would instigate something in order to prove the madhab of Imam Ahmad to be right, just to pick up a fight. His son Salih married a wealthy woman, and he bought some expensive furniture, about 4,000 dirhams. One day a fire lit up in his house and burnt all the furniture and everything. And this was after his father's death. Imam Salih said, he said, I am not upset because my furniture was burnt, but because I kept this garment which my father used to wear, and he gave it to me after his death. Every time I prayed, I wore it. Every time I went to the masjid, I wore it. Every time I gave a halaqah, I wore it. So he entered into his house and he saw everything burnt. He looked, and guess what? He found the garment unburnt.